Welcome to the next installment in my video lecture series for international economics. And in this particular video lecture, I'm going to be taking a look at the allocation of labor. In particular, taking a look at the relationship of the value of the marginal product for two different sectors, and here referencing food and cloth, and how an equilibrium wage rate is determined. So if you remember, if we take a look at here, we have our demand curve for labor in the cloth sector, and that is represented by the value of labor's marginal product, which is just the price of cloth multiplied by the marginal product of labor for cloth. So remember that what that does is it's putting a dollar value on the production of individual workers. So instead of just saying that a worker is producing 10 units per week, it places a dollar value, and that represents the demand curve for that particular product. So make sure you remember that for cloth, we are moving from left to right. So we can see here that this demand curve is downward sloping because we are moving from left to right. As we started higher wage rates, the demand for labor in cloth production is lower than if we lower the wage rate, and we see that the quantity demanded for labor in cloth is going to increase. The thing that oftentimes confuses students with this particular figure is the fact that they look at the marginal product, the value of the marginal product for food, and they look at this and they say, well, this is upward sloping, it's not downward sloping. The thing you have to remember is that for food, we are moving from right to left. So as the wage rate falls, we are going to be moving in this direction as an increase in labor used in food production. So I think that's one thing that trips up students initially, is that they take a look at this and say, whoa, this is upward sloping, it's not downward sloping, what's going on? Just remember that we're referencing the right-hand side of the y-axis. Here we have a secondary y-axis, and what we're doing is that as we move from right to left, that denotes a increase. So that's the first thing that usually students trip up on. Other thing is, I just want to point out to you, this point right here, this graphic here, you can ignore this for the initial parts of this particular video lecture. So you can see that we have both demand curves for labor and for cloth, and where they intersect one another is going to give us the equilibrium wage rate and the equilibrium amount of labor used in cloth and in food production. Or it tells us the percentages, how our total labor force is going to be allocated between these two sectors of the economy. Now, if we take a look at this, I want you to make sure you understand why this is an equilibrium and why points above or below would not constitute an equilibrium. So if we go back to that part where I told you to ignore, let's assume here that this line represents a wage rate above the equilibrium wage rate. As you can see here, that if we go from that wage rate and we go straight down, we can see that there's a decrease in labor used in cloth production. And we have the same thing for food production. Here's increasing labor in food production. We go straight down, and that gives us our labor used in food production. And as you can see by that pink line right there, that is the total labor supply that is not being demanded in cloth or food production. So in essence, what this is, or what it is it's unemployment. That at this high of a wage rate, the demand for labor in cloth and food production is less than the total labor supply. So we have a surplus of workers. So from basic economics, we know that when there's a surplus, we should see the price, i.e. the wage rate, migrate downwards. And what do we see that pink line doing? We see it shrinking. So as the wage rate falls, the amount of unutilized labor, i.e. unemployment, is decreasing until the wage rate migrates all the way down to the equilibrium wage rate. And then the cloth and the food sectors are using all of the total labor that is available to them. So we can also take a look at for wage rates below that, and let me move this line down below this point. So realize that this distance from here to here is the demand for labor and cloth production, and then moving from this direction over to here, this is the demand, the quantity demanded for labor and food production. So you can see that adding those two together is actually greater than the total labor supply. So at this wage rate that's below the equilibrium wage rate, the total demand for labor in cloth and food is greater than the supply of labor available in this economy. So we're going to have a shortage. So we know that when we have a shortage in a particular market, the price migrates upward, the wage rate migrates upward. And what do you notice about the pink line? As that wage rate migrates upward, that excess demand for labor decreases until we get to the equilibrium wage rate. And once we get to there, the demand for labor and the supply for labor is equal to one another.